Hello everyone, I'm Guido Grinbaum back again and welcome to Module 5 of the theoretical course on microcredentials. In this session, we're going to talk about something that makes the difference between a university that experiments and a university that transforms, the ability to scale and sustain its microcredential system. Issuing the first batches is easy. The real challenge begins afterwards, when the pilot ends and it's time to turn that experience into institutional policy, because issuing 5 credentials doesn't change a university. What really changes things is when a faculty, every program, and every instructor speak the same language of verifiable competencies. Scaling means 3 things. First, integrating microcredentials into the institution as a whole. Second, standardizing the criteria and processes. And third, ensuring that the model is sustainable, technically, pedagogically, and economically. Without these 3 pillars, microcredentials remain just an experiment. Let's see how leading universities do it. There are 3 common ways to scale up: by faculties, by programs, and by partnerships. In the faculty-based model, each school gradually adopts the system, using shared guidelines and templates. That's how SUNY, the State University of New York system, did it, integrating 64 campuses under a single methodology. The second model is by programs. It starts with short courses or continuing education and then moves on to postgraduate and full degree programs. Dublin City University in Ireland integrated its microcredentials directly into the National Qualifications Framework and the partnership model. They rely on partnerships with companies, governments, or international consortia, such as the Erasmus Plus program and the European Learning Model, which allow for cross-recognition of credentials between universities. But to scale, you have to measure. Without data, there is no management. Measuring impact is not bureaucracy. It's the only way to demonstrate institutional value. The most commonly used indicators are simple but powerful. How many credentials were issued? How many students participated? How many were shared? How many were verified? And how many translated into real employability? For example, a reasonable goal for an institution's first year could be to double the number of credentials issued, have 40% of students obtain at least one, and 60% share them publicly. These are achievable metrics, but the most important thing is that they are measured and communicated. Transparency builds trust, and trust is what attracts more teachers and more students. Now let's talk about money, because no educational system is sustainable if it isn't economically viable. There are 3 main models. The free model, with internal subsidies, as in European public universities, where funding comes from programs like Erasmus Plus or Horizon. The freemium model, with some free courses and others paid. That's common in Coursera, edX, or at Tec de Monterrey. And the paper issuance or service model, where each credential has an associated cost. It's used by private universities or corporate consortia. There is no universal formula. Each university must define what balance it seeks between access and sustainability. Ideally, public education should remain free, while premium services are offered to companies or executive programs. This allows for scaling without relying entirely on the institutional budget. As the system grows, another challenge arises. Operational management. Issuing credentials manually works with 100 students, but not with 10,000. That's why leading universities automate the entire cycle, from issuance to verification and tracking. They integrate their credentials into the LMS, the academic ERP, and their quality assurance systems. The most widely used standards are Open Batch 3.0, the European Learning Model, and OneTech verified credentials. All of them guarantee interoperability and traceability. But I would say that the biggest challenge is not technical, but human. Scaling up requires a profound cultural shift. For years, the university degree was the symbol of achievement. Now microcredentials challenge that structure because they certify more specific, more flexible learning, and in many cases, learning that is more relevant to the job market. Institutional success depends on how teachers and administrators understand this change. The universities that succeeded invested time and patience in training their own staff, created workshops to teach how to design microcredentials, practical guides with real examples, and spaces for discussion about competency-based assessment. It's not just about learning to use a platform, but about understanding a new way of certifying knowledge. All of this requires planning. A university that wants to institutionalize micro-credentials, thank you, should have a 2-year roadmap. In the first 6 months, a controlled pilot with 3 programs and 5 credentials per program. Then, consolidate institutional policies and create an official catalog. In the second year, expand to all faculties and integrate with the LMS, and measure results with clear indicators. It's simple, but it requires consistency and vision. And vision also means looking ahead. Between 2025 and 2030, we will see enormous changes. 5 trends will shape the future. First, integration with artificial intelligence to map and validate skills automatically. Second, national skill walls, digital wallets where each citizen stores their verified credentials. And third, the automated recognition of credits, which will turn a badge into an academic credit without limits. Fourth, skills-based education, where the university curriculum will be completely modular. And fifth, continuous assessment, where labor market data will feed back into academic programs. We are entering an era in which universities will be part of a living ecosystem of lifelong learning. They will no longer teach just to grant degrees, but to support complete professional development paths. And that requires moving from projects to policies. Because a university that issues isolated credentials has an interesting initiative, but a university that integrates them into its quality system, its institutional strategy, and its budget has a sustainable model. That is the difference between innovating and transforming. Scaling micro-credentials is not just a matter of volume, it's a matter of coherence, purpose, and permanence. The future of education will not depend on education itself. Not on who launches the most pilots, but on who turns them into real university policy, aligned with the mission, with quality, and with society. As the European Microcredential Framework 2025 said, credentials do not build reputation. Institutions do. In our next session, we will wrap up this journey by looking at how to turn all of this into a comprehensive institutional project, from strategy to final evaluation. Thank you for joining me up to this point, and I look forward to seeing you in the next module to consolidate everything we've learned. Thank you.